You have a purpose. I hope you know what it is. Your organization has a purpose. The world has expectations of you. Sometimes it's not always in line. And if it's not, what do you do to make sure you're pointing in the right direction? It's not an easy switch. Let's talk about being on purpose and work-life balance with Chris Gibson next on Purpose Under Pressure. Welcome back. My name's Brian, and this is Purpose Under Pressure. It's a podcast about developing sales and leadership success on purpose and under pressure. It's brought to you by the professional sales and leadership training team at Sandler by the Ruby Group. You'll find them in Akron and Columbus, Ohio. They're in Jacksonville, Florida. They're in Capital Region, New York. They do their work from there with businesses and organizations all across this great land, and they do it on purpose so that you and your team can represent your team and yourself that way. We all have a purpose. We all have a reason. We all have something we're trying to do. So do our organizations. And we want those things to match. We want those things to be on purpose. And we want to have the tools to be able to represent ourselves in that way. So if you're in charge of revenue generation, if you're leading a sales team, if you're trying to build an organization the right way, I encourage you to connect with the Ruby Group. And you can do so online at therubygroup.sandler.com. The Ruby Group, where sales, leadership, and purpose come together. So the pressure is on. Let's get cooking. You know, we talk about purpose. Well, what is purpose and whose purpose are we talking about? Your purpose? Your company's purpose? I don't know that those two always perfectly align, do they? Even when you're the owner of the company, does your personal purpose align with your organization's purpose? I hope so. But things happen, don't they? And likely not that all of the entire team and the organization are all perfectly in line. So where do we take a stand, and how do we fight the battles worth fighting? How do we know what purpose and how hard to fight for it? They do evolve, and they do evolve over lifetime. And we're going to talk about all those good questions, and we're going to do it with Chris Gibson. He's the vice president and general manager with Bill-Jacks, and he's our guest today on Purpose Under Pressure. Chris, welcome to the show.
Hey, good to be here, Brian.
I'm really glad you're here. Chris, can you tell us a little bit about Bill-Jacks and the things that Bill-Jacks does so that we can get an idea of who you work for and who you represent and what Bill-Jacks is all about?
Well, it won't be as good as the introduction you had with the Ruby Group. That was amazing.
But because that was all scripted. That's right. You're live on Under Pressure.
So talk about under pressure. So Bill-Jacks is, I think it's about a 78-year-old company at this point in time. US-based manufacturer of scaffolding products and event staging. So we like to say our products are what makes events happen and make construction sites safe and effective, really, for the construction teams that are using scaffolding at height.
And for 78 years, you've been doing this. Bill-Jacks has been doing the same type of work for that long?
Bill-Jacks has been doing scaffolding that long. Event products came a little bit later. Fortunately, I haven't not been there for 78 years, but I've been there for about going on 6 years now.
Tell me about you, Chris.
About me?
Yeah.
Jesus, I've been with Bill-Jacks for 6 years, but I've been in the construction industry in one form or another, whether it's been consulting work or it's been manufacturing within a manufacturing organization running new product development, or it's been with a smaller company doing a turnaround of a business that may be struggling in the organization and has run adrift and needs new leadership in order to put it on a different path of growth. So, that's a little bit about my, professional background. Personally, been here in Toledo, Ohio now for, I think it's 26 years now.
Okay.
So 2 grown adult children. My wife and I have been married for, she's going to catch me on this. I think it's been 42 years now that we've been together. So,
that's good.
We've been, across the country, living in different places, but always stuck together and been in a variety of different companies, but mostly in the building products industry.
So I want to talk about challenges along the way, but first I want to understand what you're made of, Chris. So I'm interested in your purpose. We're going to talk a little bit about how that affects the company and the organization and even the family along the way, I think. But what makes you tick and why are you walking this great planet?
So good question. I think years ago, during my career, I've been, really I guess some people might call it A-type personality in trying to drive more growth, drive more results inside the organizations, and also personally reaching certain goals. Uh, but it was really after a period of time, I think, when I learned that, going after certain, extrinsic values in life just wasn't getting there. Something was missing.
Mhm.
So I really sat down and had a gut check, I guess, in life as well as in business, to sit down and say, what am I trying to do? What is my real purpose here? And it really boiled down to serving others, whether it's serving others in the community, serving others in business, serving others in sales, serving others customers. But it really boiled down to, what can I do in life and in work where there's a consistent theme across both elements. And people think about work-life balance, and I think that's, you don't really have to have a work-life balance if your work and your life are connected.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
if they're connected in terms of the core values that you hold dear, then you're fortunate enough if you can use those values and the talents and gifts that you have in your profession. So I'm fortunate in that, I found that probably later in life as opposed to earlier in life, but it's guided a lot of my actions that I've had in both my personal and professional life.
So likely somewhere along the line, for you to know that something was missing, that those things you were chasing weren't cutting it, it's likely
Mhm.
that you were on purpose, but operating in a way that perhaps wasn't part of that. How were you able to know?
Yeah.
What kind of examples can you give me of how you figured out that this just wasn't working for you and you had to try a different, at least a
Mm.
different methodology?
I think for everybody it could be a little bit different, but you look around, you go, boy, I mean, something's just missing. Okay, you're succeeding in your work life, or you're finding good opportunities, and you're making pretty good money, and you're
Hmm.
doing all the tangible things that people will say, boy, that person's really successful. But inside, they may be gut wrenching and not really happy and feeling fulfilled with what they're doing in life. So that was really a connection for me, is to step back, and it was really a pivotal moment in my life. There wasn't some aha moment or anything like that, but there was a pivotal moment in my life that said, something's not right here. All right, for some reason, I don't feel completely 100% in terms of what I'm doing, at home or and at work. And there's tension between those two, and you know that's really what kind of centered me. I had to get centered in something that was more meaningful, as opposed to chasing something that the world tells you to chase, as opposed to getting connected with what's really important, and then staying centered on that. Because I mean, the world, from my point of view at least, is that, from a very early age, you know, the world will tell you what's important,
Hmm.
or try to,
It will try
and,
to.
and tell you things that are really critical about, you got to have success here, you got to have success there, you got to own this, you got to own that, and it can really, lead you astray down a path. And in that path, I was definitely pursuing until I, really had like I said, a gut check that I had to sit down and say, that's not success. Uh, and that's when I sat down and said, okay, what are your principles? What are your priorities? What are your values? And it was really a builder friend of mine who really kind of started talking that way. And I said, I really probably ought to sit down and write my own. You talk about mission statements for
Hmm.
work and businesses. I said, probably ought to sit down and write my own, about what's really important for me. That's going to kind of guide me throughout, my life and my career. So that's really what I, centered around, how do I provide value to other people? how
Yeah.
can i how can I be of service to other people? uh, and that's really, focused a lot of what I do.
So I'm interested, and maybe I push back a little bit just for sake of conversation. I'm
Sure.
59 years old. I'm looking at you. I don't know you other than how we've met. I'm assuming that you're somewhere near that as far as age goes. You don't have to. You can just nod your head. Yeah, you're close, Brian. That's fine with me. But I'm interested. How long ago did this gut check happen? And then I have a follow up question for that. How many years ago was that?
It was about 20 years ago.
20 years ago. Okay.
Yeah, about 20 years ago.
Okay. So because I was wondering, I was going to say that maybe it's easy for older folks because I had my gut check probably about 15 years ago where I realized,
Hmm.
look, what the road you're on isn't the road you need to be on. And I
Yeah.
did something different. And then I had an even better gut check about 3 or 4 years ago where I said, okay, let's switch it again a little bit. Let's tweak it a little bit more. But I worry sometimes about, that world if you don't try hard to keep up with it and you don't try hard to build something in the first place when you're young, you can get left behind. Is it easier for older folks like us to say, there's more important things than that? Or should there be a way that a younger person can grab hold of that now while they're trying to build their career? Are we asking too much of them to try to see deeper when they just can't see with perspective?
I think it's probably a uniquely individual
Hmm.
thing. I mean, each person's going to approach life a little bit differently. I've known people, who were a lot younger than me who got it a lot earlier and was
Okay.
able to prioritize their time, was able to put their values ahead of short-term gains, for company benefit, or for that may have benefited them financially, but they something in their life happened at an early age, whether it was a loss of a loved one, loss of a parent, and they just had that time to sit back and say, wait a minute, what am I really doing?
Hmm.
And and I know, like, for my kids and others, I mean, we talk about, there's a phrase, live light, live large, and it's experience based. It's having experiences as opposed to accumulating things. And I grew up at a time when I was younger, it was accumulation. So
Yeah.
what can you accumulate? And we look back. My parents passed away a few years ago. My wife's parents passed away, I think a year ago. And you look through and you go, okay, we're cleaning out their house, and this is
Hmm.
like all these things that have been accumulated over time. And you go, wow, we just had an estate sale, and that went in 2 days. All that was accumulated, those things that were accumulated, and the value, the monetary value of those things were so small. And you look back and you go, wow, they might have been treasures for them at that time, that they felt were very important to them. But in reality, when you reach a certain point in life, they're of no value. And experiences and connections with people are really what's of value.
So let's explore this a little bit from the organization's point of view.
Yeah.
Everybody works for someone. Most people don't own their own thing. They work for someone, and those folks set the standards and the culture and the mission. Um, when your organization has goals and revenue projections, and they need to satisfy the stakeholders, and you
Hmm.
say, "Yeah, but I need work-life balance," right?
Hmm.
I'm as much in it for me, maybe even more so than I am for you, or something, whatever that might be for balance. How does the organization allow you to do that without pushing you too hard? And what if they do push too hard for their own benefit? You know kind of where I'm going here.
Everyone in the organization needs to know how to sell. Sales is the strength of any company. Whether or not you're in marketing, operations, or even finance, everyone has a strong shared accountability towards driving top-line revenue. Whether or not you're client-facing or talking over the phone, you're able to build a stronger level of rapport with the clients. Everyone in the organization shares that responsibility to know how to sell.
How does the organization allow you to do that without pushing you too hard? And what if they do push too hard for their own benefit? You know kind of where I'm going here.
Yeah. So I can only speak. I can't speak to other organization. I can speak to to how I try to operate.
Yeah.
And how I try to operate is, first and foremost, I think working and having a purpose where you can deploy your talents and gifts and skills within an organization, whatever that organization or whatever that work is critically important and brings a lot of value, both individually to a person as well as collectively to the people that they influence. And I think that's critically important to solve a lot of ills in our society. I mean, it's very difficult to how should I say this? I think it's very difficult to have some basic level of sustenance and have hope and be able to pay your bills and put your kid through college and have some basic needs met, those basic needs met, and then other needs met without having a good career or good job.
That's right.
Okay. And I think good jobs, for me at least, when I look at the manufacturing organization of Bill Jacks, I think it's critically important that people have really good jobs, because those jobs provide opportunities for people in the community. They provide, that foundation and this reality that the economics are important. Mm-hmm. So I start there in terms of the purpose that what we do as a manufacturing company is critically important, because it provides opportunities for people to raise their families, put their kids through school, have enjoyment and vacations and do things together. And without those basic elements, people can lose hope. I mean, they can lose hope. They can turn to other things that are detrimental, I think personally to themselves as well as collectively to the community. So that's where I start in terms of, the importance of deploying your talents and gifts in a way that bring value to yourself as well as to others. So within the organizational environment, it's really important to connect people and help people connect and use their talents and gifts in ways that bring value to the organization as well as themselves. And I think that's important for them to have enjoyment in their work. When you're doing things where you're naturally gifted and talented, as opposed to trying to do things that you're not talented or gifted at, and trying to do something different in an organization. So we work hard in terms of trying to, identify, from an individual level where people's talents are, and to provide them opportunities to use those talents and gifts to grow in the organization. Now, from a management point of view, I kind of look at it from the standpoint, I tell my people, I said, look, we're not clock watching people here. Okay. Mm-hmm. If you got a dental appointment, go to a dental appointment. Mm-hmm. If you got a go to a doctor, you don't fill out a lot of paperwork. Okay. We all work at different times. We might be traveling as salespeople and having been on the road a lot of times. I'm like, you're away from your family a lot when you're in sales. And that takes a lot out of people. Okay. You're on the road, you're working at 8:00 at night, you're getting into a hotel late, and you're following up with customers at night. These aren't 40-hour-a-week jobs. That's right. So you might get back on a Friday and say, I'm burnt. I'm taking some time. Yeah. So I think it's important just to be flexible with people in that way, and to expect to trust that people are going to do the right thing inside the organization. And it's important for us, for me at least, to set those guidelines within the organization and say, we operate within these guidelines. We all know what our purpose is, as an organization, what we're trying to do as an organization. And I trust that we're going to work together to get there. We have obviously processes set up to manage that and make sure that we're course correcting where we need to. But I try not to live in a rigid world. Yeah. And in a rigid corporate environment, that carries some risks. I mean, of course, in terms of,
you have to trust your people.
You got to trust your people. I mean, you show up as adults, and we expect to operate as adults, and we have to have trust in one another and lean on each other when we need to. So, that's just sort of a guiding way in terms of how I operate. Now, has it gone afoul at times? Yeah, it's gone afoul at times. So
How so?
people can take advantage of it.
Yes.
In terms of the license that you're giving people some, wide latitude in order to do things. So you've got to course correct on that. I mean, it's not unheard of where you have to help people find another place inside of an organization, because you've got the rest of the organization that you have to worry about as well.
Yeah. And which matters more? Where is the flexibility? Is the flexibility in the person, the employee, and their purpose when the pressure gets high, or is the flexibility on the company to adapt to allow that person to thrive? If everything has a chance to mix, it's not a complete, this isn't ever going to work. Who gets to change a little bit so that things work forward for everybody's best interest?
So I think it's both hands. Somebody told me once before, at a different company I worked with, he said his leader came up to him and said, sometimes the company is going to ask more of you than you're giving. Okay. And there's sometimes you're going to ask more of the company to do something. That's just the yin and yang. That's a balance that you've got to work within. And I think any leader is going to have to balance that inside their organization and do it on an individual level basis. If you we have a lot of one-on-one times with our teams and individuals. So we know when somebody might be facing a household challenge, something going on outside of work that you go, okay, we just don't drop that at the door when we come to the office. It comes with us. So some people might disagree with this. They'll say, well, whatever happens outside of the office is your problem. We got work to do right here today. And my point of view is, no, it's happened. You're bringing it with you inside the office, whether we like it or not. It comes with you. So you have to be able to deal with that on a human level. And the same thing goes when I talk to my people, is the things that happen at work. You don't want to take that home with you too. I mean, if there's frustration at work, then you have to find ways in order to work through those and be able to communicate with people and not take it home with you and chew it out at the dinner table with your family. I said that can be destructive as well. So that work-life balance is work is life and life is work. It has to come together. And I think good leaders are able to recognize that, and good leadership's able to recognize that and deal with it on an individual human level.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think there's so much that goes into it. And I think, oftentimes we say purpose and we automatically assume that that's good. And I think that's not exactly the right way. A purpose is what you're trying to accomplish, what you're here for, what you're doing. And some companies are out to make a buck. And I think as long as they know it and they let everybody know it, then maybe they get those types of people. But I think if a true purpose-driven, good purpose-driven, helping people company and good purpose-driven employees, managers come together, even though those purposes might be a little bit different, you can make that work. I think as we wrap up here, Chris, if you don't mind helping me to understand and helping our listeners and watchers, viewers to understand, if they're in a situation where they're not totally in line, their purpose, they're feeling that in their gut, right? The way you and I both did. Something's not right. However, it's a career. They're trying to reach the pension date, or there's a lot of unrest that would come with just up and leaving and changing. How can you grow more in purpose with your organization? And how do you know when it's just not possible and you've got to find a way to get out and move?
Mm-hmm. So that's a really good question, because I've wrestled with that in my own career when I've been in a place that I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just almost destroying.
I just can't do this anymore. Right?
It's really, really hard to get to that point, and you make a transition. Either the transition is going to be forced upon you, because you're not a good fit for the organization, or you're going to choose to move on to a different organization. That's always a difficult choice, because you sit back and you think about it, you go, well, not everybody has that privilege and opportunity to just say, well, I'm miserable in this job.
That's right.
Can't work, but I don't have anything else to go to.
I can't just quit tomorrow.
Right? I just can't quit tomorrow.
Yeah. I've got a mortgage. I've got kids. I've got college expenses. Yeah.
So that's always a tough choice, because you still want to be able to keep your values within the organization. And one of the things that I've done, an organization is really just a collection of individuals operating on their individual level, with an organizational oversight.
Interesting.
So it's a matter also of staying connected and networked within the organization. There's times when I have felt within an organization very isolated. Okay. But you got to be able to network within the organization and find people within that organization that you can confide in and be supportive, and they'll support you and work with you to try to get you into a better position within the organization. Because an organization, different departments will operate differently. Different leaders in an organization will operate differently.
And you might be a better fit in one of those different locations.
And you might be a better fit in some of those other areas. So being able to network within the organization and search elsewhere. But it's also important, I think, doing a little self-reflection. All right. And I've done this myself in terms of, how should I say this? I may have been bringing something to the organization that was solely on me. Okay. And I wasn't really reading the organization in a way that I should have. Okay. So I may have put that on myself, right? Because I may have had certain expectations of the organization that were unfounded. Okay. Or I may have been behaving within an organization in a certain way that may have been causing tension elsewhere. So you really got to step back and go, wait a minute, is this me or is this the organization? And is there something that I need to do some self-reflecting on to change myself, my own behavior within the organization? Because, I might be the one causing this.
Not always easy.
And believe me, I've been there before.
Yeah.
I've been there before when I've looked back and I said, I could probably handle this a little differently. And I might have been the problem.
Yeah. I'm causing my own issues. Yep.
I might have been causing my own issues. And that's where I think it's important, for whether you're in work life or personal life, is to have a network of people that you can talk to, that you can just go have coffee with and just to say, hey, look, I'm dealing with this challenge here. What do you think? And just get some different perspectives, because sometimes we can live in our own head and everything works beautifully in our own head. But
the stories we tell ourselves are extremely interesting, aren't they?
Yeah, but somebody else who can challenge you and challenge us in a way that is truthful. I mean, and sometimes that brutal honesty is necessary.
It's great advice, and I think there's more people listening and watching now that are in that spot. I think in today's society, in today's world, where the job market is a little bit different and the expectations on people are a lot different, and they're heavy and they're high on both organizations and for people. I think a lot of folks feel sometimes a little stuck. I feel like I should be doing this, but I'm doing this and I'm not in the right spot. And so I think that this conversation goes a long way, and I appreciate your being vulnerable and sharing some of those things. And I have the feeling that you're the kind of guy that wouldn't mind to talk to other people if they're struggling with it. And so if someone needed to reach out for any reason, if they wanted to talk to you more, something about some things that you've learned over time, or even of course about Bill Jacks, and maybe they want to buy some scaffolding. We talked about this before. Not everybody is a prospect, right? But Chris, if someone wanted to reach out to you folks, how would they do that?
Reach out to me personally?
or the company, either way, whichever you're
You know,
comfortable with.
just, I mean, the easiest way to do that is on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
For me and for the business, the easiest way to get a hold of me or the company is on LinkedIn. And I've had people, reach out to help. And honestly, I just got off the phone with somebody the other day who needed some help, on a different role. So always happy to get online, look at my network, see how I can connect people and to other people who might be able to provide some help to individuals. And because there's been a number of people who have helped me, and who have sat down with me and had coffee and lunch and networked. And I think that's critically important, for anyone to do. So
I feel led
just
to
try
ask
to pass
the
it
final
on.
question, and I hope that they
Yeah.
will. I hope that they'll reach out to you. And this last question I wasn't planning to ask, but I want to know the answer, even just for me.
Uh-oh.
Everybody else you can leave now. No, I'm just kidding. This is just for me. I'm interested now that things are right with you. You're on purpose. You're in an organization where things are on purpose. Your family is on purpose. You've got things figured out after going through some ups and downs. What's the future look like for Chris Gibson when you wake up in the morning and put your feet on the floor and get after it? What's the future look like, and how happy are things looking for you? I assume
So,
happy.
so let me reset a little bit here,
Yeah.
though, Brian, because I for myself, I'm always a work in process. So you still have your ups and
We're
downs.
not there yet. Okay.
Life is always going to throw you something.
Thank you for sharing that. That's important. Good.
Yeah, it's just a matter of how you going to respond to it, and where can you get centered to respond to it. So it's not like, oh God, everything is great. No, I wouldn't give that impression. Don't want to give that impression at all. It's just a matter of when things do get challenging, how do you respond to it? And that's what I would say.
I'm so glad I asked the question, because that was not the answer I expected. And yet, looking back, it's the answer I should have expected, because that on purpose is always under pressure, and it's always trying to force a little change, and it's always going to throw a hurdle, and it's always going to throw an obstacle in your way, whether it's personal or whether it's organizational. And you've got to be on point, don't you? You've always got to be paying attention, focusing on that purpose, making sure that you don't deviate, putting the bumpers up on the bowling alley, so that everything
Yeah.
that you do is on purpose and in line. I love that.
No, that's true. For anybody, I've talked to people that I've worked with before is, what is your why?
Mm-hmm.
What is your purpose? What do you want to do? Write it down on paper, keep it in front of you, and try to make progress towards those goals that you have every single day. Even if it's a small gain, it's still, those small gains stack up. So whatever move you make, try to make another move the next day. It's just training, every single day to try to get better and better at what you do. That doesn't mean you're not going to get knocked down every now and then,
No,
because stuff's going to happen. If you're in a company, the company could get sold tomorrow. It could go out of business. It could, any number of things can happen. That it's part of life. It's just going to knock you around a little bit. It's just a matter of how do you get back up and keep going.
Mike Jones is the owner, founder of Sandler by the Ruby Group, and he
Mm-hmm.
taught me a long time ago, and I think he learned it from somebody else. But when things get hard, you just get up and you do the next right thing, whatever that thing is, whatever that next right thing is to do. Just do that. If you don't know what to do, do the right thing. So
Yeah,
I think that's
it's
what
hard.
you're saying there.
Yeah, it's hard. As I've told, one of the things we talk about in our company is we always do the right thing, even though the right thing can be extremely painful sometimes.
Absolutely.
We're going to always do the right thing. Mm-hmm. And somebody said, well, how do you determine what the right thing is? I said, well, you just kind of stay centered and go, what do we think the right thing is to do? Is it taking advantage of people, or is it giving to people? Is it, how would you want to be worked with?
How would you want to be treated?
Yeah. How do you want? So it's getting back to some really basic elements that sometimes we forget along the way.
It's great advice and it's often forgotten. And I'm so glad for this conversation. I think it's, I hope, helpful to many people that you're not alone. If you're worried and wondering what's the future look like for you, make the next right choice, do the next right thing. Don't give in under pressure. And I want to thank Chris Gibson, Vice President and General Manager with Bill Jacks. Thank you, Chris, for being on our show.
You bet, Brian. Thanks for having me.
Folks, thank you for being here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. I love this show because I never know exactly what's going to come out on the other side. And I think if you're watching or listening today, you should feel at least pointed in the right direction, or maybe even know that you're in the wrong direction. One of the two should have happened through today's show. And the next thing to do is up to you. So I do appreciate that. And I'm glad you're here and I'm glad you're watching the show and being a part of it. If you like it, go ahead and subscribe. We do the show multiple times a week. Did you know that? If you were subscribed, you would. Also, if you would, go ahead and tell a friend. That way they can be on purpose too. You'll find all past episodes of Purpose Under Pressure at brianmediastrategies.com/podcast and wherever you stream your favorite shows. It's brought to you by the Ruby Group, where sales, leadership, and purpose come together. And until next time, no matter how high that pressure gets, and it will get high, do yourself a favor, stay grounded, stay on purpose.